The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we'll review two very different but equally disappointing draws. We'll also preview the upcoming Colorado Rapids match, and we'll cover some other Austin FC news. My name is Landon Cottam, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley. And Landon, I'm very happy to be back from Las Vegas and recording in the back bedroom because I'm a little bit tired, even still from then. And I'm more excited to say that we are joined by some local celebrities, Aggie from the Fighting Leslies, Trevor Garrett, and Jesse from Pollo FC, and the one and only Pollo. Pollo, how you doing?
Oh, he's happy to be here.
Well, is that what he said, Jesse?
Yeah,
in a sense.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Pollo FC, Fighting Leslies are two things that just we said this on the show a few weeks ago, that even in times like this when the team is really bad and things are in the Austin FC community feel a little bit dark, your two organizations are things that I think are just like pure joy and just bring a lot of light to the community, which I really, really appreciate. And what makes it even better is y'all are joining together with Austin Beer Works to use your forces for good and for a good cause. So I guess Pollo crew over here, do y'all want to tell us why you're here, what you're promoting, and why it's important?
So the hope is to put a really cool beer can in people's hands with also equally delicious beer, and then get everyone to buy a bunch of cool stuff, and then take that money and then put it into Mobile Loaves and Fishes and help them build a couple more houses, because they're doing a lot of good stuff over there. And it's a really cool partnership. It's cool to break away from doing a lot of the animal work and then branching off to a different segment. It was a suggestion from Beerworks to branch out and go help them out a bit, and it seemed like a really cool project. And then having, of course, the Fighting Leslies there, it's a perfect partnership. So that's what they're totally all about.
Yeah.
So, Pollo, why is this partnership really important to you? I didn't really understand that.
Big shot.
Yeah.
Does he not want to answer any of Jeremiah's questions?
I don't know
Yeah,
what's
I
on
think
the
so.
word today.
No.
He's emotional still.
He's still emotional. Yeah. Yesterday's draw was a tough one for him. Yeah.
All right. Well, Aggie, do you want to tell us some of the details about when this event's going on, how people can get their hands on this beer?
Yes, you can get your hands on this beer by coming to Austin Beer Works Saturday, September 30th at 7 p.m. It will be a watch party for the Colorado Rapids game, and we will be selling Fighting Pollo Pilz and some merchandise, limited quantities of just about all of it. So beer, bandanas, T-shirts, koozies, lots of stuff. We're trying to make it a family-friendly event with some arts and crafts and some games, and just not your exact typical watch party, but, something to get people out, have some fun for a good cause over there at the Community First Village.
Yeah, we got to see the can art, and I love all of Austin Beer Works can art. It's always great. But then if you add in Fighting Leslies and Pollo, just these two, just like these epic icons of different types of graphics and visuals that y'all use in all of your stuff, and then mix that together onto an Austin Beer Works can. It's exactly what it's like, better than I could have ever hoped it would be. And so sure. I can't wait to get my hands on the can, and then also to see some of the merch that y'all mentioned. And as they said, this is all going to Mobile Loaves and Fishes. This is and it is Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and what else? I'm sorry.
It's Mobile Loaves and Fishes Community First Village.
There you go.
Support of the Community First Village, which is a segment of Mobile Loaves and Fishes.
Gotcha. Yeah. So good cause, good beer, good art, good people like these folks here. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I can't wait to get my hands on the beer and to see you fine folks again one more time.
Of course.
Likewise.
Thanks
for having us.
Really appreciate it.
So much.
Thanks, guys. He says thanks.
He says farewell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always glad to see those guys, Jeremiah. I am not entirely sure what you did or said to Pollo, but he apparently doesn't like you very much.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a mystery. I feel like every interaction I've been fair with Pollo, and we'll see how this all resolves itself, if it does.
All right, should we jump into the news?
Yes, let's get into some news.
All right, so Austin FC 2. We've been saying this for weeks and weeks that they just need to win a game to clinch the third place spot. So they go up to Arlington, play North Texas SC. They go down 3-0. There's a big rain delay or a big weather delay. They play for 10 more minutes, another big weather delay. And I think they end up kicking off around 11 something, not long before the first team
finally
kicked
kicks off. Yeah.
Which we'll get into shortly, but ended up losing 3-1 overall. Sporting Kansas City drew against St. Louis and won the penalty shootout, which bumped them up into the third spot. So Austin FC 2 is not guaranteed a home playoff spot. Those playoffs will kick off this coming weekend. The matchups will come out on Tuesday, the day this comes out. So we don't know what those are yet. You may know by the time you're listening to this, but Austin FC 2 could still get a home playoff game if the second or third seed do not choose to play them as their opponent. So still a decent chance that Austin FC 2 will be playing a playoff game at home this coming weekend. So look at that. As long as there's not weird, I don't know if it's going to match up with the first team game. It very well could, but if there's not, I imagine there's going to be a decent little crowd out at Palmer Field.
Yeah, be a playoff action. I love that the thing in the press release said the date, time, and location will be announced in due course. Was the specifics of it? I've never seen a note quite written that way.
So one thing worth mentioning on the Austin FC 2 game is Damian Loss has been on the bench for the first team the last couple of games. The last time they didn't play on the same day, and so he was able to start one and then be on the bench for the other. This time they play on the same day, and so Spencer Sanderson, who is an academy player, 17 years old, gets the start in goal. Dallas scored 3 goals. I think 2 of them, there's probably not much anybody was going to do about them. They're giveaways in the build-up, some disappointing defending leading to a shot and then just a really well taken shot on 2 of them. Maybe the third one, it's hard to say just because you don't get different angles in these games, but yeah, I think either way, they're probably missing Damian Loss there. But like we said, that's just going to kind of be part of it with this team.
Yeah, that's right. And do you think that's the reason why we had to call up the 2 academy one academy goalkeeper and another goalkeeper out of the roster because Austin FC2 was so thin at this point?
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, they signed Nico Aristizabal, who was the U15 goalkeeper whenever they won GA Cup, and then a guy named Greg Monroe, who's a college player, and both 2 amateur deals, meaning they aren't being paid as professionals, but in like Nico's case, he can still go to college and not lose his eligibility for playing pro. That's what it means. But yeah, I think that probably does mean that like going forward, maybe they have other plans for Damian, whether it be with the first team or elsewhere, but it seems like they're kind of preparing for him not to be there all the time.
Yeah, and we don't really know. I think we can get into this now, like why Matt Bersano hasn't been in the lineup, other than there was like picture of him training with like a wrap around his wrist, but it's been nothing official come out about an injury, right?
Yeah, nothing been announced. I think there's like 2 likely scenarios, which is one, he's maybe injured and isn't ready to go. But again, seeing the video of him in training, you'd think if he's training, he's good enough to sit on the bench, right? The other theory, which I don't know if it's how true it is, but I think we talked about on the show how whenever Rodolfo Burrell came into the team and a few weeks in, we start seeing some changes on the second team. That's when Jackson Walty gets traded. They sold is Eric Lopez, the old backup goalkeeper for Austin FC2, sell him. So some of these older guys who had been starting every game, had these spots, they're either sold, have been put on the bench. You see CJ up with the first team more often. You see quite a few changes, and I have a theory that Burrell is pushing for kind of a youth movement across the whole system here. And so maybe that's part of it too, is they want Damian to get up with the first team, spend time with the first team, and then push some younger players into the second team.
Well, and then in other Rodolfo Burrell news that I have, he was also in the Lexus Club during the pouring rainstorm on Sunday night, and apparently loves him some Cartitas tacos, because I saw him go back at least twice to the line. And yeah, I know. Look, who doesn't? But it's glad to see that he's adopted that bit of Texas culture.
All right, last bit of news was the Bobby Jones. Do you remember what the rest of the initials here stand for?
I do, but I cannot pronounce them, so I was just gonna leave it.
It was the fundraiser that
Syringo Maelia Foundation. How does it sound?
Sounds great. But it was the cornhole tournament fundraiser that Brad Stewart was a part of. Went out, got to chat with a lot of great people, got to talk with our friends Ron and Leanne Stuver, who are always a joy. And so that was a nice little event. And they raised, was it $7,000 what they ended up raising?
Yeah, I think number just came out. I think today, and it was $7,000. So a successful event in terms of fundraising too.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Jeremiah, I think we should take a break. We'll come back and talk about the 2 games from the last week. When no one is around. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education.
You can go to fef.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's fef.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. Amplify's team lives and works in the community, making them the experts on how members can achieve their financial goals.
What makes Amplify different? No bank fees. Amplify is the first financial institution in Texas to put an end to bank fees. In 2022, Americans paid almost $8 billion in overdraft fees alone. Millennials pay an average $336 a year in bank fees, which works out to 6 Austin FC game tickets per person per year. But we also 5.5 of those no comply jerseys, which I wore on Sunday night and continue to love. So if you can still find one, get one of those. You'll pay none of those bank fees with Amplify Credit Union.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more, go to www.goamplify.com/moontower. And what else can they find at that link, Jeremiah?
At that link, listeners will also find a entry form for free parking at Amplify's Esperanza Batch, minutes away from the stadium. For any Moon Tower listener, visit the website, provide your email address and details about your car for free parking. Please RSVP so that Amplify's facility teams knows not to tow your car. And we have a new sponsor alert. This is McGuire Woods Consulting. So we're happy to bring McGuire Woods Consulting on as a premier sponsor. They help companies and nonprofits navigate the political process at the Texas Capitol, or take it for whatever you wish, and also at the city and national level through lobbying, communication strategies, and general advocacy.
With offices across the country and in 10 MLS cities, including Austin, Houston, and Dallas, McGuire Woods Consulting is solidly verde and black. Learn more about our friends at McGuire Woods Consulting at mwcllc.com. All right, we are back. Before we get into the crazy night that was Sunday night in Austin, Texas, with the rain delay and the storm, we have another game to talk about, which was the New York Red Bulls game. This was away on Wednesday. Austin drew 1-1, which continued the winless streak. It's like a draw that when we were talking a few weeks ago and looking ahead, we kind of said this game away at New York, if everything else goes well, that could be the one kind of rotate people, or if we can get a point out of it, that's great. And so we got that point, but because we lost against Portland in the way that we did, this point did not feel very good.
Right. Because I think when we were talking about results, we even mentioned it, this point is the point that will get Austin from out of even, for 9th to 8th in a good spot. And it was just, I did not watch this live. I watched it back on the replay. And it was just Austin really dead in attack almost all the way around. So it was a tough one. I guess I mean, you're playing like Red Bulls. Did you feel like was it like energy drink soccer that won the day?
No,
Well, I guess didn't
I
win
mean-
the day, but it seemed like strange from the Red Bulls too, right? The way they played.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can let's get into that about like how we lined up and how we set up against them, because I think like I could see what Austin was trying to do, and I don't think it was a bad idea, but we'll get into why maybe it didn't work, and like yeah, the reasons why a good idea didn't necessarily pay off. So coming into this one, we had Julio Cascante suspended for yellow card accumulation, Matt Hedges, Adam Lundquist, Kip Keller, and Will Bruin all out with injuries. So they called up Joe Hafferty from the second team on a short-term loan. He was on the bench there, did not end up playing, but was there if needed. So we ended up, the starting lineup was Brad Stuver in goal. And then this is another one of those lineups where we got a list of names and we're trying to put puzzle pieces together and figure out, okay, how are they actually going to line up here? And I feel like this was like a newer one. This was not like a standard one that we've even seen before.
Yeah, I went to 3 different websites today to try to like mostly to see like Owen Wolf at left back, because that's what everybody. It's what all the MLSsoccer.com and FotMob and the other one I looked at like all had him there. Like, do you have a educated?
I would say the
was?
way I saw it was Owen Wolf not at left back but at wing back. I know it's shades of gray here, but the way I saw it was a 5-2-3 more or less. So it was in the middle. We had Alex Ring as like the left center back, Leo Weissen is the center back, Nick Lima as the right center back, and then John Gallagher as the right wing back, Owen Wolf as a left wing back. And then ahead of them, you had Danny Pereira, Johan Valencia, and then a front 3 of Rigoni, Urruti, and Driussi. And those Rigoni tended to stay left, but then Driussi and Urruti were pretty fluid and kind of floating around each other and moving into different spaces as they saw fit. But they were playing much more conservative. And so you talk about energy drink soccer, like they don't want the ball. And this is like a team where a lot of their strategy is not having the ball. It's getting the ball into certain parts of the field, winning duels, and then trying to get a shot off as soon as they can. And in this game, Red Bulls ended up with 61% of the possession. And I think it was even higher than that in the first half. And so this is a strategy that is shown to work against these types of teams, like teams who don't want the ball. Give them the ball and make them beat you with it. So like in theory, this is a strategy that can work against this team. What ended up happening is Austin was maybe being a little bit too passive and just invited a lot of pressure on themselves. So they were sitting deep. Red Bulls ended up having the ball in their half, creating a lot of chances, really putting them under pressure over and over. And the part where, like, even that part of it is fine. If you get them to come forward and come into your half, if you can then hit them on the counterattack, that is where the strategy pays off. And Austin would win the ball. They would launch a ball up. And I think it was a combination of the front 3 not always making a great run. If they did make a decent run, either the pass wasn't very good or the Red Bulls players were in decent position and cut it out. And so like for one of those 3 reasons, over and over and over, Austin would win the ball. They try to launch a counterattack and it would just go nowhere. And so like, again, like good plan in theory, but if you can't do that second part, then it's absolutely useless.
Yeah. The execution was definitely lacking. So let's talk about this own goal from Emiliano Rigoni, because I feel like that was I don't know. I feel like that was unfortunate. Emiliano Rigoni was in an unfortunate place for that goal, right?
Yeah, this Rigoni should not get any shade or hate for this one. It is totally not his fault. So John Gallagher commits a foul in like dangerous free kick territory. And then on the free kick, Gallagher is the one who loses his man. I can't remember who it is who receives the ball on the back end, but I think Gallagher runs, like kind of floats into the box as the ball comes in. He thinks the ball is going to come into the box, but ends up going over his head. And he's completely lost track of the guy he was marking, who ends up bringing it down, smashing it into the 6-yard box. And Rigoni is like retreating towards the goal, and the ball essentially just hits him in the leg and goes in. And like from that range and that position at that speed, like there's nothing Rigoni can do at that point. But what could have been done is having a tighter mark on that guy who received on the back post and not letting him get that cross in at all.
Yeah, I feel like that will continue. That not being tight enough on defense is a theme that will continue through all the goals this week. I think when we get into the second game too, there was a lot of that also from a lot of different players. So that is a trend for this week's matches for sure.
Yeah. So we don't need to spend a ton of time on this. I mean, as far as just kind of overall takeaways from this one, I just talked about why this strategy didn't work. And this is one of those things where like, if we had like done this more, you feel like the team would have been a bit more prepared to actually pull it off in a game like this. But there's been so many games for so long where that didn't happen. Like the coaching staff and like the game plan was very dogmatic about like, no, we're going to try to play our game. And
well, right. We heard that especially a lot last year, right? Which maybe, I mean, it worked a lot earlier in the year, but we hear that a lot about, we're going to play our game. They'll have to react to us.
Yeah. And like having a plan B is important, but if you don't ever do it and it's not something you work or don't have personnel for, like when you just try to do it randomly like this, like, yeah, it's a good idea if you can pull it off, but if you don't pull it off, then you're happy to get a draw in the end.
So the Austin goal came in the first half. Also, it's Sebastian Girisi goal. It's his 10th of the season. So I think we talked last week about how he's been a little bit under the radar. I feel like he definitely popped out a little bit this week in terms of performance. This one was assisted by Johan Valencia, also on a very good run of form. And somebody, I think when we did the who we wanted to play in the rest of the season show, I did want him to start, and I want to change my opinion from like 3 weeks ago now. Do you want him to? And Rigoni also on this assist.
Yeah, this is a corner. And this is, I think, what Austin tries to do in most corners, where they'll play it kind of short to the near post, hope to get it on someone's head and like flick it onto the back post where there's people rushing onto the goal there. And this was perfectly executed where Valencia arrives. The service was good. Does a perfect little flick header onto the back post. Drusy arrives, heads it in to the far post. And so perfectly executed. I feel like Rigoni had one or two games there where his corner delivery and set piece delivery was not good. And I feel like the last couple of games, that's been at least one bright spot that is improving, that he's looked better in those moments. I mean, like, what else is there to say about this one? Like, maybe let's move on to the Galaxy game and we can kind of give some overall takeaways about where we're at.
I think that's probably the best thing to do. That there was not a lot that came out of this first match. I don't even remember that much out of this first match after sort of everything that went on last night. So let's talk about the Galaxy.
Yeah. So this one was supposed to start just before 9 p.m. We get seeing news alerts come in that there's going to be a crazy storm coming. Right before kickoff is about to happen, they finally announced a delay. I was in the stadium when the storm was going off. I think were you gone, or were you tucked in the Lexus Club there?
I was in the stadium when the storm was going off, and we were actually like standing out on the concourse when things were blowing from north to south because the Lexus Club was like blocking the wind. But then it started like swirling and coming from every direction, and it was nuts. And I think that was when some of the hail started coming down.
Yeah, it was
so
somehow
we wanted to take advantage of the good seats.
Somehow raining in a circle at one point where we were up in the eastern terrace there, and like in the middle under the canopy, and there was still rain falling directly on my head somehow. I don't understand how it happened, but it got like really intense in there for a while. We stuck it out through all that, and then they made one announcement like, oh, the lightning's going to be gone at this time, and then they made another announcement, lightning's going to be gone at this time, and the game's probably going to start at like 11:30. This is like 10:20 or something, and we're like, all right, we're out, we're going home. Ashley had an international flight to catch today, and my parents were with us and had to go do some work stuff early this morning, so we're like, yeah, we're not sticking around for an 11:30 kickoff. Kudos to all the folks who did. Y'all still kept it a lot of fun and had some good energy in there, but I couldn't do it, man.
Yeah, and I love the video I shot and posted on the Moon Tower Soccer account yesterday. That was from on the concourse right outside of the Lexus Club, and I wish I had a shot for like 10 more seconds because it was right before the power went out.
Oh,
And you had this great visual of like the drums and the LEDs all still being lit and the rest of the stadium being completely dark and the crowd going crazy, which was just, it was insane. But yeah, man, shout out to all the people that stuck around.
all right. So the lineup for this one ended up being Cascante's back from suspension. So this one ended up kind of being the like shorthand, let's call it the box midfield. So in attack, it was like the 3-2-2-3. And then in defense, they were shifting back more to kind of like a straight 4-4-2. And so that ended up being kind of the folks you would expect. So the midfield was Valencia and Pereira as the deeper ones, Alex Ring, Sebastian Driussi as the attacking midfielders. And then you had Ethan Finley as the winger who was staying high. John Gallagher would be kind of become the other winger. And then Emiliano Rigoni playing as the striker. And I thought Rigoni had like a decent game at striker again, much better than he's been playing anywhere else lately anyway.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. I mean, I don't know if it's just the being direct or what, but I don't know what Giassi Zardes' injury situation is for the rest of the year, but this seems like, well, and the same thing with Matt Hedges. Like this is maybe the best 11 that Austin can roll out just on a regular game basis. Like this seemed like a pretty strong starting lineup. Maybe it's because Austin needed to really get a result and chase a victory. And I also thought it was interesting, like the way they played in this game, at least for the first 80 minutes, was very different from Red Bulls, and very different from like how Austin's lined up throughout the year. But this is like an attacking, playmaking kind of Austin roster.
Yeah, and as you said, Matt Hedges still out, but Cascante back, so we could play two proper center backs and then have Nick Lima kind of in that flex role there. As far as how this game went, like, I mean, it looked like it's kicked off at 11:30 p.m. The Galaxy, especially for the first little bit, looked like they were sleepwalking through the game. And I think Austin was able to take advantage of that a few times, and then maybe got taken advantage of later on for the exact same reason.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this off air, but right, Austin had some guys later on that looked tired, even though they should have been tired because they hadn't been in very long. And that reminds me, also, in addition to the fans, Weston Applefeller and the groundskeeping crew deserve a lot of credit for this game even going on at all, because I mean, the field was like a lake. As I saw Evil Mopac say, there was more water on the field than there is in Lake Travis right now. And then by the time it finally started, I mean, there weren't puddles anywhere, right? It was wet and it was still a little bit slippery still, but the field was pretty dry given how much rain had come down.
Yeah, it wasn't like a noticeable issue during the game.
Although I would say that in 2 minutes in, when John Gallagher got his yellow card, I feel like the field had as much to do with that as John Gallagher did.
Yeah, maybe so.
Kind of overslid a little bit, and if the field had been drier, the contact wouldn't have looked like it did.
Yeah. Let's run through kind of this first little set of goals. I think the more interesting talking points come in the later goals. So Alex Ring gets the first one in the 11th minute. This is a cross comes in from Gallagher from the left side. Finds Rigoni, who I think is trying to like kind of trap it and bring it down on his foot. And it just
I
kind
was
of
going
like
to ask you that. Yeah.
He miscontrols it a little bit, which is lucky because it falls right into Alex Ring's path. Rigoni notices this and just backs off and lets him have it. And Ring hits it really nicely and kind of curls it into that far post. I defer to a goalkeeper here. I don't know if Bond should have maybe done a little better. He gets a hand on it, but it's just fingertips kind of, right? And it still trickles through after he gets it. But the strike either way was really, really nice from Ring on that one. Second goal, equalizer comes right at the end of the first half. It's a Ricky Puig penalty. This one, Puig is set up to receive with his back to goal at the edge of the penalty the 18-yard box. Cascante steps up to kind of challenge him, steps on his foot, and they're showing the replay over and over. And it's like, it's one of those really annoying ones where it's like not a hard foul, but it's one you have to call because he does clear as day stomp on his foot. And it like inhibits him from taking the next step to carry that ball on after his first touch. And so like you have to call it. And then Puig comes on, takes the penalty. Stuver guesses the right way, but it's far enough down his body that it hits him in the legs. He can't get hands on it. And so you're kind of at the mercy of the bounce at that point. And so it hits him in the legs, but bounces over and still goes in. So a little unfortunate on both the penalty happening at all, and then the way that like it wasn't that well taken, and Stuver guesses right, but it still gets in. So a little unfortunate all around on that one.
Yeah, you mentioned on the edge of the box. I mean, if it was 2 feet further up the field, Ricky Puig would not have been inside the box. I mean, it was like right on the edge of the box. I had some brief moment of hope that maybe his foot wasn't like in it, but that definitely turned out to be unfortunate.
Yeah, right after that, at the very death of the first half, Ethan Finley puts Austin ahead again. John Gallagher has a really nice play on this one where he has it over on the left side, is carrying it like back away from goal, and then turns on, I think it's Kelvin Leardam that's covering him, and touches it past him, and then cuts inside again and just gets really close to goal right on the inline there, and then just kind of hammers it across the face of goal. And I think if nobody would have touched it, it would have just gone through and nobody would have gotten onto it. But Jonathan Bond again gets a hand, just enough of a hand on it to slow it down, which allows Ethan Finley to fight his way across the face of Raheem Edwards, the other fullback, and just outworks him and gets across his face and gets a foot on it, and the ball just slowly rolls into the back of the net. But really good work by both Gallagher and Finley on that one.
Yeah, that Gallagher was like when I play my son in FIFA and he just has like a guy running in circles around me because he's just so much better at it than me. Like that's like I felt like we saw that. And then Finley he just got outside of it, and then he kind of like he slides into the ball too. Like he was on the edge of like being able to make that play, and just had enough to get there. And that was it like the last moment of the first half?
I can't remember. Not much happened after that. I don't remember how much they actually let it go on, but not enough to matter. So yeah, halftime comes and goes. After the half, I think you start to see the Galaxy wake up a little bit and start to threaten a little bit more. We get to the 75th minute, and again, taking advantage of a sleepwalking LA Galaxy team and like a very lethargic back line. Credit to Emiliano Rigoni, who makes the run, and then credit to Danny Pereira, who sees the run and makes a really nice through ball, but to a back line that's essentially just standing still. But it plays Rigoni through behind. He's in one-on-one on goal, and then strikes it really nicely to beat the keeper. Just like one of those where you just hammer it over the keeper's shoulder as they go down to make the stop, and just sneaks it in right under the crossbar, but hits it really hard and really nicely. So again, take what they give you, but a really nice finish in the end, no matter what.
And I think it was Leardam there that was like beaten and sort of threw up a half-hearted call for an offside.
Yeah.
With like knowing that he wasn't, but just hoping he'd fallen asleep and gotten beaten so badly he could plot the ref into like getting a call.
Yeah. So Austin ends up making some substitutions not long after this. Jeremiah, I feel like this is one of the big like talking points after the game is some people seem to have issues with the subs that were being made. My question here is like, what else are you going to do? It's like me and Mike talked about on the show last week about how like we were saying like, okay, it could be this lineup. And Mike was like, well, I don't like that lineup. I was like, okay, well, the alternative is this lineup. Well, I don't like that one either. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at as a fan base at this point. It's like, no matter what lineup goes out, we're not going to like it. No matter what subs are made, we're not going to like it, just because that's kind of the state of the team at this point. And so like, do you have any takes on the subs and like what could have been done differently or better?
I think my main criticism, I think, well, it's going to come down to like how much you believe Josh Wolf's postgame interview. Let's just like go to that. But I think that was one of the questions that came up. I don't remember from who in the postgame, but somebody asked about the subs, and particularly why Danny and Valencia came out. Like if you're up 3-1, you're trying to like salt out a game, why put those guys off the field and why not let them go the full 90? Because they were both having really solid performances. And so Josh says, I think both of these guys are cramping. Danny had, you saw him go the other end. He was gassed. That's when we had the goal. We allowed the goal to make it 3-2. Valencia was cramping, and we asked him as he came over, and he didn't have much left in the tank. And we were already leaking a little bit in the middle of the pitch. But I think those midfield substitutions, sort of knowing what those guys bring to the table, and then was Rodney one of the guys that came in for one of them? Or
in the
was it a
90th
different
minute,
substitution?
Rodney comes in for Pereira.
For Pereira, like those, I would have liked to see those guys try to play the game out, but I'm not there on the field and able to see what's really going on.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're pulling Valencia for tactical reasons or whatever else, like, yeah, I disagree with that. But like, I thought he was so clearly having such a good game that I don't know. I buy that he was saying that he was cramping or whatever. And then if you look at the bench, a lot of people took exception to who came on for him, which was Owen Wolf. And if you look at the bench, he is the only central midfielder on the bench. And so if you're going to take someone out, it has to be Owen Wolf who goes in.
Right. And and despite those things, like, I think we mentioned this in the other game, but like the goal, we can get to this in a minute, but like the LA goals, like there were other factors, other players that didn't do what they were supposed to do, that led to those goals. And I mean, it to the point of like the subs, I feel like there's on the last two goals. Let's get into those now. So in the 89th minute, Dejan Joveljic scores one. I'm watching this goal on TV. I see Owen Wolf tracking Joveljic as he enters the box, and then he kind of slows up, kind of in like I'm passing him on to Vicenen here, but there's still a good like 5 to 10 yards in between the two of them. I'm like, Owen, you have to keep tracking him. And they put the cross in, and it gets there before Vicenen is able to kind of switch over and get back over to him. He heads it in. I think this is one. I know Stuver made some comments in the post-game thing saying that he thought he should have been better. I think this is one where maybe he could have done better. I don't think that's true for anything else on the night. Right. And he had some really great saves earlier, right? I mean, he had kick save and
some really nice
sharp
saves.
shot and some other really memorable saves that kept him in it. And that's where I don't love any criticism that people have thrown Brad Stuber's this way about this particular performance, because still he's prevented more goals than came in. I think he gets beat on the near post in both these last two goals, but he wasn't the main issue on the
second one. There's nothing he can do. Like, that is not on Stuver at all. I think this is the only one where there's even a question, and even then, it's a really hard header from like 5 or 6 yards out, and so it's tough. But he's there, and it's near post, so maybe you say he could do better. But the other ones, he made so many good saves, and I don't think there's any others that were even close to being his fault.
And then the last goal, freaking Marco Barrios, man. No matter where he plays, no matter what he does, I think he's on. Just a lot of it's just he's the kind of player, because he's so fast and Austin's so slow. It's always going to give Austin trouble. But to see him give up the game tying goal again is very frustrating.
Yeah, and on these two, I mentioned earlier that like Austin took advantage of a sleepwalking Galaxy, and the Galaxy took advantage of a sleepwalking Austin FC. Where I'm really frustrated is that it was some of these guys who came on as subs that like were playing a little bit slow, a little bit lazy, and we got punished for it. And so Owen Wolf gives up on chasing Joveljic into the box there. On this last one, Leo Vicenen pulls out to, I think it's Perez is the guy's name who plays the assist, but
he's the guy that has the primary assist. They down in the corner on the right hand side on TV, but yeah, they
play him up the line, and Vicenen has to pull out wide to mark him. As he gets past him towards the inline, like, this is the only option he has is to cross, and Vicenen isn't aggressive enough and doesn't step up to kind of put pressure on that. Plays just kind of a hopeful ball towards the backside. Memo Rodriguez is tracking Barrios on that backside and kind of slows up his run. And again, like, these are moments where you have to be turned on, like, and especially a guy who came on late in the game. I think he came on
85.
Yeah, so he's not tired, right? And so this is just like, maybe he's sleepy because it's past midnight at this point, but he's not physically tired. And he gives up the run, and by the time he realizes Barrios is streaking past him, it's too late. He's not going to catch a guy like that. Had he been paying attention and turned on the whole time, he could have cut it out easily. but because he kind of slowed up and gave up on it, Barrios beats him and gets there. The ball, I think it seems like a hopeful thing, but Barrios is smart enough to keep running and get there. Stuver's on the near post because that's where the ball is, and because nobody's back there, he just heads it in easily. And so really frustrating and annoying. Like, I mean, give him a little bit of slack because of the circumstances of this game, but like guys coming in the second half really shouldn't be beat for effort like that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Rodriguez is there. I think Maxi Urruti came in late and didn't seem like he was like running in quicksand a little bit too. It was just strange at the end of the game from Austin.
Yeah, so I mean, I just defended Josh Wolf on these substitution choices. And I think one of the reasons I get so annoyed by stuff like this is because there are very clear things that can be criticized in a lot of these games. And so like criticize that stuff instead of making stuff up. But I will say there was some really awkward body language on the field this time in general, but then in interactions with players and Josh Wolf on the sideline.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the biggest note about this. It was specific. I think it was when Finley came out, and then when
he was coming in for halftime.
Oh, is that when we come in for halftime? Okay.
Yeah, he had just scored and they came in from halftime.
Yeah, and Ring like walks right past him, and so that kind of, if you're in the vibes went wrong when something happened between Josh Wolf and Alex Ring during the offseason, and Ring loses the captain's band, and it's kind of had a bad year ever since. Like those interactions were a pretty good things in support of your argument for how maybe the locker room is kind of lost on the coach at this point.
Yeah, and that's one thing we've said all season, right? Is like if we get to that moment, then we're like, yeah, I'm fine with getting rid of the coach. And like, so that's going to be something to watch. Is like, what was it a product of just like weird circumstances, super late game, or are they done with the guy? So watching these last few games, I think will be telling, especially if we end up not like getting eliminated from the playoffs. Which let's talk about that now.
Okay, I just one thing I want to go on that. I mean, it may be if the results keep going the way they are. Because I mean, you could set point. You could talk about like, okay, well, some of these things or a lot of these things are on the players or the depth or whatever. But I feel like it'll be inevitable. Like if Austin completely crashes out and continues 72 days or something.
Yeah, if you look at the form chart, it's just all gray bars pointing down.
All right, well, let's take a break, and then we will get into what playoff race looks like, what Austin needs to do against Colorado, and maybe just a little bit of an analysis of how things have all gone wrong so far. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Covert Ford. The Coverts have been meeting the needs of local car buyers for 114 years because of their service, financial expertise, and support after the sale.
In addition to supporting car buyers, Covert's an important part of the soccer community and the official automotive partner of Austin FC.
You can unlock huge savings up to $13,486 off on the 2023 Ford F-150 XLT at Covert Ford Lincoln. You can discover the epitome of strength and elegance with the 2023 Ford F-150 XLT. This is stock number 2230514. Offer valid only with approved Ford credit. Not everyone will qualify for factory pricing. Manufacturer rebate restricted to Texas residents. Offer valid only for this specific stock number and while supplies last. See dealer for details, and this expires on October 2nd. So get on it. It's a smoking hot deal. Get yourself in a big Ford F-150 XLT.
If you're in the market for a new or used vehicle, be sure to check out covertford.com.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. Thanks to Sage Wilson Realty, we'll be giving away 2 tickets to an upcoming match. So fill out the form in the show notes to enter for your chance to win. And one of the people that I ran into on the concourse outside the Lexus Club when we were waiting out what we thought may be a mild rainstorm was Eric Wilson, who said he's really appreciated the response from the fans and had a chance to give away some tickets. And so it was good to chat with him. I hadn't seen him in a little while.
Again, this is made possible by Sage Wilson Realty. So if you or someone you know are in need of Sage real estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we are back. Jeremiah, let's take a look at where Austin FC sits in the table now and what playoff hopes kind of look like at this moment. So Austin is in 12th place on 35 points. FC Dallas is in 9th place on 39 points. So they're kind of the last in the door at this point in time. As far as looking at the other teams kind of in that pack right now, several of them have been doing Austin favors by losing and drawing most of their games so far. So I think there's some results that had they gone other ways for certain teams, like Austin would be in even more dire straits at this point. But because the other teams kind of seem like they don't want to make the playoffs either, there is still a chance that this could happen, right?
Right. I mean, the only bad thing about Dallas is Dallas does have one game in hand on Austin. So it's 39 versus 35, with Dallas having played one less match. But absolutely, Minnesota United, LA Galaxy. So Austin and LA Galaxy entered the match on Sunday night in 12th and 13th and ended it in 12th and 13th. So they're not making up any ground. It's a possibility. I think one thing that may help Austin, although it would be awful to need 3 points on the road on decision day, but this San Jose Earthquakes match, with San Jose currently being in 8th, and Austin and 6 points ahead of Austin, but to have Austin having played one less game, maybe there's an opportunity there. That would be super stressful for that to matter as much as it might.
Yeah. So looking at like what Austin needs to do, is it 4 games left? Is that right?
4, yes.
4 games left. We were saying before that they probably needed 3 wins and a draw. They've now gotten 2 draws. And so if we're going with kind of that same line, I think it's still likely that they need at least 2 more wins to even have a hope of sneaking into 9th, and maybe still 3 wins out of these 4 games.
And these 4 games are Colorado on Saturday on the road, DC United on Wednesday, October 4th at home, LAFC on October 7th, which is one where they've really been struggling too lately. So maybe there's points available there that one
and maybe
think about.
Maybe don't have anything to play for at that point too.
Possibly, right. And then the San Jose match we talked about on the final day of the season.
Yeah, so San Jose is almost certainly going to have something to play for, whether it be their playoff lives or trying to fight for a higher seed or try to get out of those play-in rounds. So like San Jose is going to be motivated. Some of these other ones, I mean, yeah, DC's there for the taking. Colorado is now officially been eliminated from the playoffs and have been just very clearly the worst team in the league this season. So that is another one, like they should win this one. But with the way things have been going, like, how are you feeling about that?
I don't know. And I really buy it. Austin has been such a better team at home than on the road. Like I never expect more than 1 point on the road, I don't think is a good result from here on out. So yeah, you want to talk about Colorado a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So they are currently in last place in the West. As I just mentioned, they're officially mathematically eliminated from making the playoffs. They have 22 points. They have only scored 21 goals this season. If you look at kind of like the hierarchy here of goals for, Austin FC sits and they have 22 more goals than the Colorado Rapids.
More than double in Colorado. Yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, they've just been really awful. They have nothing to play for. Their top scorer is, I think, their left back and a central midfielder. Their top assist getter is also that same central midfielder as Connor Ronan, who is a player. I haven't watched a ton of him this year, but when he joined last season, it's a player I liked a lot. They've been missing Jack Price, who's a big spot there. Kevin Cabral got brought in last year, looked okay for a bit, but I think hasn't for a long time now. Diego Rubio is a player who had some really hot moments the last couple of years. I think he started this year injured and then just hasn't done much since he's come back. And so, I mean, it's a team that's there for the taking. Like if Austin wants to get some points and get any type of like good feeling back, like this is the moment to do it. And if they lose this one or even draw this one, I think that's like, it's mathematically not the last nail in the coffin, but it's definitely not the first nail in the coffin.
Right. I mean, if they draw this one, you're almost looking at like Austin having to win all 3 matches for the end of the season with a team that has shown no inclination to do that. Did you see that Tom Bogert is writing a review of every team as they get knocked out of the playoffs?
Oh yeah.
So he just debuted that today. So the Colorado Rapids article came out. I thought it was interesting. His position is that like only Andrew Gutman and Ronan would be starting for anybody else at this point in time, just because of how bad they've been overall. And they've got a really bad owner. They don't spend a lot of money. So if Austin's going to pick up a win, this seems like a great time to do it.
Yeah, and looking at Austin's side of it, Sebastian Driussi comes out of the Galaxy game late, holding the back of his leg as if it were a hamstring thing. He looked distraught, whether it be from pain or just knowing like this is bad and I'm gonna not be ready to go immediately after this one. So Austin going into these last little stretch of games with several guys injured. So Zardes wasn't suited up for this last one. Hedges wasn't suited up for this last one. And then if Driussi is out, like it gets a little more dire even then. So I don't know, like how does this team line up without Driussi in the 11?
So then it comes down to like who takes Driussi's spot. And you're assuming that the other guys aren't back either?
Yeah, I mean, let's assume Zardes is not back.
That's what I was asking. If Zardes is not back, I don't know. Alex Ring has been pretty strong in the attack? You play Alex Ring further up the field, which we know he kind of likes, but
yeah, I
also
think
not been great at times.
Playing, I think in either formation, I think that is probably the most logical answer. Is if it's the 4-3-3, you play maybe Valencia, Pereira, and Ring in those middle three. If it's the box midfield, you play Valencia and Pereira deep. You play Ring and Finley or Rodriguez or whoever as that other like kind of flex winger attacking midfielder. And then whoever's not playing there playing as the other winger, and have Gallagher kind of playing as that flex wing back winger position. So, and then Rigoni, if there's not another striker available, play him at striker. If there is, move him into that attacking mid spot or the wing spot. And so I feel like it slots in pretty naturally. I don't think there's a lot of tough decisions, but the end product is probably still lackluster no matter what.
Right. Even in a kind of down year, Driussi is producing more than any other player. We have kind of touched on this, but like, what do you think about the Rigoni at the 9? I think we got a question maybe from Twitter X about that. Like, is that an experiment you just go ahead and run out for the rest of the year to see if it works? Or
I wouldn't be mad. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad about that because he's looked decent at it. I mean, he still has like if his set piece form continues and he's putting in decent service on corners and stuff like that, he's worth having on the field. He's still able to drop in and kind of do link up play like Zardes does, and like Driussi maybe does a little too much whenever he's playing as the 9, but then can stretch that back line, is decent enough size to be a presence in the box. And so like he's not the perfect fit, but like nobody is. And even as good as Zardes is at certain things, he's also just too old and slow to be completely reliable or effective all the time. And so like Rigoni is maybe our best bet there at this point, even if the others are healthy. Jeremiah, I think we've kind of covered all we needed to. Do you have any final thoughts on the games before we move on?
I mean, maybe it's because I'm eternally an optimist, but we have these talks, on Monday night every week. And then I just hope that there's a nice 3-0 victory over the Rapids and things break right and Austin's closer to the playoff position than they are now. And we'll be in a much like cheerier mood than we are right now about how things are going.
Yeah, I didn't fully realize this, but there's an international break before decision day. And so we're going to have 2 weeks off and then play that last game. And if we're already eliminated from the playoffs, that's going to be such a brutal 2 weeks waiting for this one more pointless game to have to talk about and cover and pay attention to before the off season comes, because I think at this point we're all understandably a little bit looking forward to the off season.
Yeah, we're a little bit right. We're a little bit ready for like the middle to late part of December when you get all the player allocations and free agency and like all those things. So we could see sort of Rodolfo Burrell and what he's going to build during this offseason when there's going to be a bunch of guys coming off the books that make a fair amount of money, and a big chance to overhaul this roster.
That's right. All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up. Before we do that, I would like to remind listeners to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we haven't done this in a while, where we make a donation for every review that we get. So if whatever podcast app or whatever you're listening to this, if you can leave a written review, go on there, do it. We're going to count all of the ones that we do over how long do you want to say, Jeremiah?
Let's say between now and the end of October, a little over a month.
Okay. We're going to donate $5 to Community First Village, which is where the money from the Fighting Pollo Pilz and all associated merchandise is going to be going. We're going to pitch into that as well. So every review that we receive, we'll throw $5 towards that same cause. Help us out, and then we'll be helping out Community First Village as well. If you want to continue the conversation, come find us on Twitter at LViajero87 and JBentley_ATX, and then at Moon Tower Soccer on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And then be looking out for more regular content from us on all of these fronts. It might be a little slow working it up, but we're going to have more of that happening in the near future. And then sign up for our Patreon. We greatly appreciate your support. And then also appreciate you supporting our friend Phil West. That is Substack, which is verdeallday.substack.com/moontower. And that /moontower at the end will get you a 20% discount there. Thanks so much.
And, Phil's doing good stuff. And I think there's no better summary of the value that Phil provides than this headline from his last article, which is, here's some quotes I gathered between 1:15 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. last night for a match that went very, very late. So Phil's burning the post-midnight oil for you to give you good Austin FC content.
God bless you, Phil. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week to review the Colorado Rapids match, and we'll preview midweek game against DC United, and then the one in the following weekend against LAFC, and then we'll cover any other Austin FC news that comes up. Until then, I'm Landon Cottam.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothing, you never.
La gente. Oh my God.